welcome to my second video review for Tank and Blitz, and today we're going to look at the Ke-Ni Otsu. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, but not 100% sure. Looking at the consumables here, we've got Onigiri, engine boost, and I like to run the multi-purpose kit. I've got lots of standard AP and 20 of the special attack AP, so I'm considering bumping that up, and a few of the high explosive. And for equipment, I'm running coated optics, camo net, and gun laying drive. Armor Inspector doesn't quite have the Ke-Ni Otsu yet inside its module for Blitz, so I'm going to use the PC module in Armor Inspector to look at things here. For light tanks, there's not really much difference in the armor between PC and Blitz, so we're okay here. First up, the Cruiser Mark IV. Fantastic tank, overpowered for Tier 3, considered by many to be the best Tier 3 tank. It has negative 15 degrees of gun depression, and it's a fun tank. It's fast, it's maneuverable. In Blitz, if we look at the Blitz module here, you can see it's basically the exact same as the PC with gun depression and everything, so we're not really missing anything here. So going further, as we've seen, the Cruiser 4 can penetrate itself just fine. Now the T-46 is another favorite at Tier 3 by many. It's my personal favorite Tier 3 tank. It's a load of fun at Tier 3, fast, and with the autocannon, it's pretty deadly. But as you can see, no armor, lots of speed, lots of maneuverability. It's got good camo. All light tanks retain their camo rating on the move, which is an important aspect of light tanks. And if we also look at the Ke-Ni Otsu now, we'll see that just like the T-46 and the Mark IV, it really doesn't have any armor. Fast, maneuverable, stealthy, no armor. That's really what we're looking at in terms of what the Ke-Ni Otsu is all about. Now we're just going to switch guns here and switch tanks as well, and show you what the Ke-Ni Otsu can penetrate with its 37mm autocannon. So looking at the main competition, T-46, you can see easy to pen. And if we look at the Mark IV, you'll see the same thing. It's pretty much easy to pen. So from fast, stealthy, small, light tanks, you don't really have to worry about penetrating them. Looking at the Hetzer, it's a different ball game. We have two spots at the drive wheels up front. With the special AP, you can you've got a low percentage shot at the front lower plate. The sides and rear, no problems whatsoever. But up front, facing a Hetzer, not a good place to be. Luckily, the Ke-Ni Otsu is fast enough to easily flank the Hetzer. Now we'll look at the greatest nemesis of the Ke-Ni Otsu, the Matilda. The Matilda is just downright hard to pen with even the special attack AP. There's only really the rear of the Matilda that is vulnerable. So with the special attack armor piercing round, we see here that the side panels become vulnerable according to Armor Inspector. In game they still stay rosy red, but I have penetrated them. I don't know what the actual true penetration value is, but it may not be as good as it is in Armor Inspector. The rear of the Matilda is vulnerable, and those green triangles at the back as well. I've definitely hit those green triangles. They are penetrable. Now getting into some gameplay, we'll start off with a mastery game on Castilla, and I'll initially start with speeding things up, and I'll also finish with speeding things up because of the way this game turned out. coming up to the mill here, I do like to pop over the ridge here, usually to spot enemies, but sometimes they're nice enough, such as this fellow, to show themselves beforehand. One of the things I was very excited to see when I got this tank was that it actually had a 4-round autoloader, and it's really a strong gun, because after you squeeze out those 4 rounds with almost no pause in between them, you only have about a 3-second reload. Notice here that I'm now going to get down off the hill. While I may like to climb up the hill to spot the enemies initially to get that first spotting bonus, I don't like to fight up there. You're just way too vulnerable from across the map. Here we can see me stupidly trading shots with the T-46. That was really not smart to do, and I lost half my hit points for my not clear thinking there. So we all have those moments, of course. The turret and hull traverse of this tank is outstanding. Very maneuverable, and it'll keep you out of trouble. It can also get you into trouble, of course, as well, but it's a very nimble tank. You don't really have to worry about being circled by anybody. You can do the circling.
He's gone. Find us another target.
And now here, I make a decision. I can't spot that T-40. I know he's there. He can likely one-shot me if he gets a lucky hit, or at the very least take me down to a sliver of health. So I elect to not try. I'm going to go find somebody who's exposed and vulnerable. Had I not stupidly lost half my hit points, I probably would have moved up using the bushes and tried to spot him, but I just did not want to risk it here. The game is on the line here. It's 2v4, so I didn't want to take too many more chances. Here you'll see me switch to special attack AP. The reason for that is I know from past experience that the M3 Lee is difficult to penetrate from the front, actually almost impossible without the special AP. Here's an important game point. I pay a lot of attention to these little red triangles that pop up, indicating where an enemy is coming from. On tanks that it matters, where you actually have some armor, it's a good indicator of how you should angle your tank while you're fighting the enemy in front of you. The dispersion on the gun is 0.4 meters at 100 meters. Not really a good sniping gun, but most of your fighting is going to be done at medium to short distances, and the gun just excels at that distance. So moving back on here, now I decide to peek up over the hill again, because there's still 2 reds unaccounted for. And I mentioned it earlier, but one thing that I really like about light tanks is that, especially when I have good base camo values, you don't lose or have a reduced camo rating on the move. When you fire, yes, but when you're moving, it's as if you're sitting still as far as your camo rating is concerned. So they make great scouts, and here you can actually see me resetting my camo just so I can move out safely, and then it turns out he's AFK, which is a lucky break.
Another one like that should do it. He's gone. Find us another target.
One thing I want to mention here as well is that I do keep a close eye on the game clock throughout the game, and here I see that we're getting down to about the 2-minute point, and I decide that, well, I may not find this guy at spawn. He may not be AFK. He may be driving around. The safer bet to ensure victory is to drive to the base and start the cap now before the 1-minute 40-second mark. Since I'm by myself, that's the minimum cutoff, so if I didn't make it there in time, that option will be closed to me, and if I couldn't find the red, then we could wind up with a draw, which is basically the same as a loss, because the draw is a loss for both teams. A draw counts against your win rate. So it's really important to me to ensure the victory here. Just speeding up this boring part of the match here. I hate winning by cap, but winning by cap is better than losing, and since there's 6 other guys who'd probably rather win than have me drive around the map hunting for a guy I might not find, it's worth the boredom. Quick screen capture there. I always like to screen cap my masteries in a new tank. I actually had 7 masteries on the first day with the Ke-Ni Otsu. It's a lot of fun. It's really, I could say overpowered, but due to the lack of armor, the fact that you can get one shot by quite a few of the guys out there, it's not overpowered, but it's certainly powerful, and in the right hands, any tank is overpowered.
Time to roll out.
Here we see the negative 15 degrees of gun depression in action. Very useful for peeking over fairly steep hills. You can see here that I've got no problem. I've got spare. All I have to do is move up a little bit, and I've got shots on these guys. Going hull down is really one of the key points of playing this tank. There's no armor, so using the terrain as your armor is one of the best techniques you can possibly do with this tank in terms of both your survivability and being able to strike at the enemy. And again, here you can see I can keep the hill between me and the enemy and still shoot over, still get my shots in. One thing about this tank that's very impressive as well is its 1.6 second aim time. I did mention earlier that I'm running a gun laying drive, which improves your aim time by 10%, and some people might think that's a little bit weird given that the tank has a 1.6 second aim time already, but after you shoot with an autoloader, there's a lot of dispersion bloom, and I find that the gun laying drive helps get that bloom down as the tank re-aims a little bit quicker. It becomes less of an issue if you're shooting rapidly in succession. I can't really measure a difference. I tried, but I couldn't measure a difference. It feels faster to me, so I'm going to run it. I'm going to run it for a while, and after I've been using the tank for a couple months, I'm going to take away the gun laying drive and just to see if I can feel a difference going the other way, and I'll make a final decision there. But for right now, it feels like it aims faster after taking a shot.
Enemy armor is damaged. Enemy vehicle destroyed.
You can see here another nice credit payout. This tank earns well for its tier. In fact, this tank earns well for a tier 5 premium. I have tier 5 premiums that earn about the same as this tier 3 premium, so very impressive. For this match here, we're going to be fighting on mines, and I'm platooned up with It's All D Good from the Triari clan. What's really fun about this match is that I earned a mastery in this match, and so did my platoon mate. He did better than I did, and he messaged me right after the match saying that he got a mastery and I got a mastery, and we both had a chuckle because this tank, we're both running the same tank, of course, the Ke-Ni Otsu. This tank is platooned up, is just absolute pure joy at tier 3. And here I take a shot, not because I think I'm going to hit, more just to clear that last round so I can have a full clip for the next red I'm going to try to shoot at. Just one of the things about an autoloader is that I anyway tend to do that fairly often, where I'm just going to dump the last shell or last 2 shells so I can have a full 4 rounds ready to go in case I need all 4 to be dispensed promptly into an enemy. But one thing is interesting with the Ke-Ni Otsu, the reload time is so short that I'm going to probably train myself out of doing that, just because it really doesn't matter on this tank. On some tanks you have a good 4, 5, 6 seconds reload between clips, but on this tank, because it's so short, you don't have to necessarily burn off that final round. I'm still making that adjustment. I may elect not to make that adjustment as well, just to stay in the habit, so that way when I'm playing other auto-loading tanks, I'll not lose my rhythm.
We didn't penetrate their armor. We hit them hard. We just stayed them.
So here this poor M3 Lee just backs into a building. It's happened to all of us, it's never fun. And I've got a good angle on this T-46 now.
Another one like that should finish them. That's gotta hurt. Enemy is hit. Enemy vehicle knocked out. We didn't even scratch them. Critical hit. That's gotta hurt. Another one like that should finish them. That one didn't go through. Enemy armor is damaged. We got him.
Right about here, I'm paying attention to the mini-map a little bit, noticing where my platoon mate is. We kind of went our separate ways up on top of the hill, covering both sides. Now here I make a mistake. I should have been more patient and waited for my platoon mate. Instead I go down and I rush over here. I figured he wouldn't be able to shoot me because it's a hard shot to make, but now that I'm down on the ground, he could rush me, I could get tracked, which is exactly what happens. And once he's got me tracked, it's autoloader versus autoloader. Luckily, my platoon mate catches up and ends the enemy for me, but it could have been very different there. It was a mistake, and it's one of those things that we all do it. I'm mentioning it here so that you can identify it and watch out for it. Lack of patience certainly gets me killed far more often than anything else in the game. It's really that impatience that clouds thinking and makes you do stupid things. Dimsy, one of the forumers on the Blitz forum, he made a great video on patience, and I highly suggest everybody check that out if you haven't already. Really, I think a lot of people I play with, myself included, patience is one of those things that everybody can work on and should be working on. Here we can see that gun depression at work again. I did roll a little bit too far forward, but I had the angle for the shot before I rolled a little bit too far forward. There you have it, I got a mastery, and my platoon partner, he did better than I did, so he also got his mastery, so twin masteries. I'll leave you here with a showdown between the Ke-Ni Otsu that I'm driving and this Matilda, and give you an idea of how difficult the Matilda is going to be on the battlefield. It really is the hardest tank for the Ke-Ni Otsu to deal with that it will face. So you can see here the special AP is capable of penetrating at the rear. The sides, those little triangles, are vulnerable. Those little divots on the side, the paneling, it's red. In Armor Inspector it's not red. In the game it's red. I have hit him a couple times. Penetrations do occur, but not all the time there. Well, that's it. I hope you enjoyed watching. If you liked this video, please do hit the like button. I'd appreciate it. Thanks a lot.